Hello, the person that's watching this, we want to thank you for taking the time out of your day to want to come and educate yourself about this present topic. But before we get into it, I would like to share a story of a young man named Oluwasegun Olufemi Akansanya. Born in December 1987 in Lagos, Nigeria. In an article, he discusses his family's immigration to Ontario, more specifically the GTA, and the emotionally wrenching event that occurred in his life that led him to show acts of delinquency at the tender age of 10 and 11 years old, and ultimately become involved in gangs and gang-related activity by the time he was in the 7th grade. In the article, he quotes that there are an estimated 6,000 kids involved in gang activity in the GTA. But these groups are a lot smaller than many people think, and they are not organized into intricate hierarchies like you see on TV. Most of them are based on where people live, particularly in low-income neighborhoods or community housing complexes. Lots of these crews don't even think of themselves as gangs. They're just a bunch of guys trying to get by. After watching this video, we encourage you to click the link down in the description that will take you to the article that discusses more in detail about Oluwasegun's journey and his redemption from being involved in gang-related activity. We really encourage you, and we hope that you'll take the time to also go and read that article. But as for now, once again, we thank you for wanting to learn more about this topic. The video will begin very shortly. Welcome to the Knowledge Effects series with Save the Children and Weston Buddies. Today is day 4 of the Save the Children Takeover. Hello and welcome. My name is Michelle Pukua, reporting live from my bedroom, but on behalf of SCC News. Today's news report will focus on the epidemic of gang violence amongst youth in the Black community, the GTA, and Ontario as a whole. We'll be discussing how systematic racism, amongst other factors, geared towards the Black community is a contributing factor to the increase of youth gang involvement. We will also discuss possible solutions to tackle this heavily prevalent issue within our society, as well as resources for individuals in this circumstance to turn to. Now, before we progress into the informational aspect of this news report, I think that it'd be best to first introduce a brief history and talk about the general emergence of youth gangs in Canada. So firstly, what is a youth gang? The first recorded work on gangs in Canada was a study of juveniles in street gangs in Toronto by Kenneth H. Rogers in 1945. Since that time, many research and evaluation studies have been added to this growing field. According to the Public Safety of Canada, youth gangs typically consist of young people who self-identify as a group, are generally perceived by others as a distinct group, and are involved in a significant number of delinquent incidents that produce consistent negative responses from the community and/or law enforcement agencies. There have been many reports taken from the Canadian Police Survey which all suggest that youth gangs are a growing concern in many Canadian jurisdictions. Although not to the same extent as in the United States, comparisons between the two countries show that almost twice the percentage of jurisdictions in the United States report active youth gangs as compared with those in Canada. The results from the survey shows that Canada has 434 youth gangs with roughly 7,000 members nationally. Ontario has the highest number of youth gangs and youth gang members in absolute terms, with 216 youth gangs and 3,320 youth gang members. Almost half, which is 48% of all youth gang members, are under the age of 18, and most are between 16 and 18 years old, making up 39%. The largest proportion of youth gang members are African Canadians, residing at 25%, followed by First Nations, which is 21%, and Caucasian, which is 18%. To further understand why these statistics are becoming more and more prevalent in Canadian society and within our communities, we must also consider why young children decide to get involved in gang activity in the first place. Many youth who join gangs have also been identified as youth who use drugs and/or are already involved in serious and violent crime. Furthermore, youth who display higher levels of previous delinquency are more likely to remain in the gang. The reasons for joining a youth gang are vast and various. Some seek excitement, others are looking for prestige, protection, a chance to make money, or a sense of belonging. More specifically, a gang can be seen as a source of protection, a way to address concerns about personal safety and security, whether as a result of personal experiences of violence or due to the fear of the expectation of such violence. Gangs can also provide the means to acquire material goods and resources that may not be available through legitimate means. In many instances, joining a gang and a turn to illegal activities is a way for individuals to increase income and achieve financial goals. A gang can also act as a social organization that provides its members with excitement, entertainment, or the status associated with other groups. In many cases, the gang is a primary social institution in the neighborhood. It also provides members with an opportunity to meet others, and it can be a source to access drugs and alcohol. Gangs can also be a source of empathy and emotional support to its members and provide individuals with a sense of belonging. Membership can offer a source of self-esteem and identity, as well as companionship and support. In this way, the gang can become a substitute family for its members, through which they can fulfill financial and personal goals. And lastly, a gang can be attractive to those facing difficult social and economic conditions, including poverty, low educational performance, lack of job-related skills, and social disorganization. If young people perceive that a future of helplessness and hopelessness awaits them, the gang lifestyle may appear to offer them a much better alternative. This just in, some additional information has come forward that systematic racism and mass incarceration are also leading factors to youth gang involvement. On to Nadia, who will provide more details.
Thank you, Michelle. This is Nadia reporting live from STC News. People tend to think that systematic racism isn't a big issue in Canada, but it is. As Canadians, we often compare ourselves to the US, but this isn't helping the situation. In relative terms, we look better. In absolute terms, we still have a long way to go. We see the police brutality in the US, but we fail to recognize the police brutality here in Canada. Canadians like DeAndre Campbell, Nicholas Gibbs, Orlando Brown, Jermaine Carby, Andrew Loku, and Abdurrahman Abdi are some Black Canadians who have died at the hands of law enforcement. This proves that to a great extent there has been continuous efforts to diminish the experiences that African Canadians have faced contemporary to systematic racism within our communities. Black Torontonians are 20 times more likely to be shot by police than the city's white residents. An examination of Special Investigation Unit SIU cases involving Toronto police officers between January 1, 2013 and June 30, 2017 found that although Black residents comprise 8.8% of Toronto's total population, they accounted for 25% of SIU investigations during the time period studied. 125 cases of which are racially motivated and wrongfully targeted. Over-policing of racialized neighborhoods in Toronto is a very common issue. Mass incarceration of Black men is also a big issue. This leads to the absence of a father and/or the poor example of father figures within a young child's life. Black men often receive harsher sentences for lesser crimes, like non-violent drug offenses. Black people are dramatically overrepresented in Canada's prison system, making up 8.6% of the federal prison population, despite the fact they make up only 3% of the population. All of these examples are directly linked to youth gang involvement. The question now becomes how. A study done by the Office of Justice Programs found that various forms of social injustices, such as those tied to systematic racism, the social structure and institutionalized patterns of race relations, the accommodation of poor and minority group members to an affluent society, and the individual experiences and perceptions of racism and oppression, are important causal determinants and reinforcements of gang delinquency and gang crime. It also suggests that the gangs will exist as long as ethnic or racial oppression exists. As well, with issues such as mass incarceration, for which Black men have been continuous targets, there are indicators that suggest that a poor father figure in a young child's life caused them to mirror a similar path of gang involvement due to the lack of proper support system in both their familial and social life. Michelle, I'm currently hearing from Mahzuzah, who is reporting from Brampton, and she just told me that Brampton, after several years of being one of the epicenters for youth gang involvement, have finally reduced their statistics concerning this to just below 37.54%. Let's hear from her. On to you, Mahzuzah.
Thank you, Nadia and Michelle. My name is Mahzuzah and I am currently reporting to you live from Brampton for STC News 24. Nadia, what you've said is incredibly true. In fact, rates are at an all-time low in Brampton, in which youth are being involved in youth gangs. And what's happening in terms of the prevention and intervention plan in Brampton is currently being employed throughout the GTA in order to reproduce the same exact results. Well, according to a study done by the Greater Toronto Area, it's been proven that youth who typically join gangs do so for protection, enjoyment, respect, money, or because a friend is in a gang. Youth are also at a higher risk of being part of gangs if they engage in delinquent behavior, are aggressive or violent, experience multiple caretaker transitions, have many problems at school, associate with other gang-involved youth, or live in communities where they feel unsafe and where many youth are in trouble. To prevent youth from joining gangs, communities must strengthen families and schools, improve community supervision, train teachers and parents to manage disruptive youth, and teach students the necessary interpersonal skills required to do well in school. No programs have been developed specifically to prevent gangs from emerging. In the meantime, to prevent youth from joining gangs, communities must employ multiple strategies and services, including addressing elevated risk factors for joining a gang, improving community-level supervision of youth, providing training for teachers on how to manage disruptive students, providing tutoring for students who are performing poorly in school, increasing adult supervision of students after school, providing interpersonal skills training to students to help resolve conflicts, whether that be at home or at school, providing a center for youth recreation and referrals for services, providing gang awareness training for school personnel, parents, and students, and finally providing training for school resource officers in mediating conflicts. A balance of intervention, prevention, and suppression strategies is important for success in any community. Prevention programs target youth at risk of gang involvement and help reduce the number of youth who join gangs. Intervention programs and strategies provide sanctions and services for younger youth who are actively involved in gangs to push them away from these gangs. And law enforcement suppression strategies and intensive services target and rehabilitate the most violent gangs and older, criminally active gang members. This concludes the entire webinar for gang involvement and gang violence within our community, and I hope you enjoyed. Like and subscribe to our channel, and make sure to be tuned back at Weston CI Save the Children News 24.